Lady LeLe back with another video, and this is my review, opinion, thoughts on the Netflix original series. Well, not original series, but the Netflix documentary Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. My plan is just to give you my thoughts on it. I'm not finna recap the story. You all know what the story behind Jeffrey Dahmer is. So I'm just going to talk about the actual Netflix series and my opinions on it. So I'm not going to retell the story. But just to put it out there for those of you who don't know who Jeffrey Dahmer is, he was a serial killer who was very active in the Ohio and Milwaukee area. His activity ranged from like the late 70s all the way to the early 90s. There were 16 victims involved. Out of that, 16 victims, actually was more than that because two actually got away. Majority of the victims were men of color, primarily African American men, Latinx men, and then there were some men of Asian background. It would suggest that that Dahmer may have been, homosexual in a sense, because all of his victims were men. So he was convicted. He was sentenced to consecutive life sentences, and he did end up being murdered in prison by another inmate, and that person is currently serving consecutively life sentences. I'm no stranger to the Jeffrey Dahmer story. I remember it when it happened back when it hit the news back in 1991. I had to be between the ages of 10 and 11. Depends on, I can't remember, it had to depends on what part of the year of 91 it was. If it's more towards the beginning or the middle of it, I was 10. If it was more towards the end of it, I was 11. But I remember seeing the Jeffrey Dahmer story on the news segment. It was worldwide news. I remember them showing court scenes and seeing the victim's family testify, express their anger towards them. I remember pop culture, comedians even like doing Jeffrey Dahmer jokes. So yeah, there were series of documentaries. Oprah did. It was like some crime shows. Oprah did an interview with Jeffrey Dahmer and I believe his dad. So if you were around during that time and you were in the know, you pretty much knew the situation with Jeffrey Dahmer. Like I said, comedians even start, making jokes about Jeffrey Dahmer's doings in their comedian routines. But you had to be under a rock at that time or a baby. If you didn't know, you was either a baby, wasn't born, or you just was not in the know to not know the Jeffrey Dahmer story. So Netflix recently put out a 10-episode series. I know some people had conflicting views on trying to watch it. For me, as I tell people, yes, I am Christian, I am saved, I pray, I believe in God, but I also know how to discern what's entertainment, versus taking in something and making it part of my world. It's just the same as the music. I can be going to work to my real G's in this and, walk in the office, good morning, Barb, how are you? So I always knew how to discern there's a time and place, and you understand what's what. And I always knew how to discern, entertainment versus reality, even though, art imitates life at times. I just know how to always separate the two. And I, grew up watching Freddy Krueger and Jason and all those, scary pictures. And it really much was the same thing. It's just that those characters were fictional. And Jeffrey Dahmer was a real, like, human life form walking around terrorizing. So, that it pretty much was the same thing. So my overall, I thought the series was pretty darn good. That Aaron Peters and Niecy Nash played the hell out of their parts. They played them parts. They dug in. It was real. It was real, and the characters made you feel it. They made you believe it, and that goes to show that the writing, the people that wrote American Horror Story were also the same writers writing it that wrote this 10 series, 10 episode series. So they made you feel it. Evan Peters, he even mentioned that he actually got kind of depressed doing the research and the shootings. The shooting of the film. And, he felt some type of way. He fell into, a depression doing, shooting this series. Niecy Nash even mentioned that, it was emotionally taxing on her to play the role and to do the research and to dig deep. So, she said for her, it was even emotionally, but you can tell they're real actors of their crafts. I thought that it was going to be a lot more graphic than what it was. Don't get me wrong. It was graphic. And there were some moments that I turned away. I said, ooh, and, put my eye, clothes up because I'm like, ooh, I don't want to see that. But I thought it was going to be way more graphic than what it was. It's graphic, but I thought it was going to be way much more. So I based myself, because I was nervous at first to watch it. So I was saying, like, am I going to be, because I was asking people, like, should I watch this during the day, not watch this before bedtime? And everybody was like, well, it's if you watch crime stuff and scary pictures, you might be okay. So I said, okay, I'm going to gauge this first episode, and this will let me know if I'm going to continue to watch it or not. And the way of the first episode, in which, it kind of worked its way backwards, where, the last male who would have been Jeffrey Dahmer's victim actually got away. So I said, since he was able to get away, they changed the trajectory, and they kind of work backwards. And then it came back to that current situation. So I was able to watch it. Some of my observations was, as you know, we have emerged within the years. There was a lot of racism that shows, especially in the city of Milwaukee. Milwaukee for us, Milwaukee's pretty much up the street from Chicago. So, there was a lot of racism in which, a lot of these people were, reporting and filing complaints, and people were coming up missing. And the police department was not, doing anything about it. A lot of the victims, all the victims pretty much, most of the victims were homosexual. There was of the LGBT community, the LGBT, okay, let me not mess that up, but they was part of, let me get that right. The LGBTQ community, a lot of them were part of that, as Dahmer was frequenting gay bars and picking up men. So that was, would you say, frowned upon at that time, not accepting as it is now, as there are more rights. Gay couples, same-sex couples can get married now. But back then, a lot of it was frowned upon, even though there was nobody harming nobody. They just wanted to go to places and be them and be okay and love and do all that great stuff. But there was no, back then there wasn't a place like it is now. You see same-sex couples on TV now. You didn't see that back then. So it was a situation where the police, turned a blind eye on people's color, background, and their sexual orientation. So I did notice that there were people that were trying to help, like Dahmer's neighbor, who was played, I think it was Glinda Cleveland, which was played by Niecy Nash. She was trying to help. But, being in the neighborhood she lived in, which was poor and impoverished. They said majority was a majority black neighborhood, majority poor neighborhood. It was just like things just got swept under the rug. There's no way that many people should have got killed and harmed. Yeah, so, but I think I said 2 people got away. Actually, 3 people got away, and their lives were spared. So, some other observations from it, you got to see the background of Jeffrey Dahmer, his upbringing, some weird stuff. His mother was pregnant with him. She was taking 27 pills, too many pills. Most women that are pregnant would take prenatal medicines, and if they, diabetic or, had some type of, illness or predicament prior to their pregnancy, they would take that, and even then they may have them lessen their dosage so they won't interfere with the growth and the development of the baby. But at that time, back in the 80s, they just was diagnosing her. I think she suffered from some mental health issues, and you was really trying to find out what caused Jeffrey Dahmer to be what he was. Was it the circumstances of his parents? Circumstances of his mom's health and well-being, his dad encouraging weird behaviors, him growing up for kids, most dads take the boys out to fish or play sports. He was taking the son out to pick up animals and dissect them like it was biology, so yeah, you look at the behavior, you realize he didn't have a lot of friends, showing him in high school, he was a weirdo, so people were not involved. So, they give you the background of his coming up per se. And, yeah, he didn't have the greatest childhood, didn't have the greatest, teenage years. I mean, his life seemed, relatively lonely and cold and depressing, per se. He didn't have friends. He wasn't, he had his grandma loved him to death. She loved him, and she cared about him, and she had her faith in God in hopes that he would turn some things around and just do better and be better. But it was just, you have to be careful how you raise children. You have to be careful how you upbring kids and what they're around, because stuff will transcend and follow them through their adulthood. You see so many adults walking around jacked up because of trauma and issues and things they faced in their childhood. So that's a prime example of seeing, what Jeffrey Dahmer went through. So outside of that, like I said, I thought it was very good. Each episode left me wanting more. I did not binge watch because I'm like, My schedule was watching it mostly at night, around the time, right, before you're starting to wind down. So I did not binge watch. I was trying to do like one episode a day. And then some days I'll do two episodes, because I wanted to wrap it up. But I thought it was real. It was just real. It was real. Like you felt it. I wanted to go beat Jeffrey Dahmer up, and if I saw Pete Evans in the flesh, I'd probably be looking at him like, okay, so. But I thought it was really good. I know it's some controversy right now because the family victims, the victims' families are like, why do this, and of course, if it's a Netflix deal, it's a lot of money involved. So the families, there's talks that the families might go ahead and they may allegedly may try to sue Netflix, bring some lawsuits. I know in the previous past, when there was I think the Dahmer's dad wrote a book, and they were I think they sued for the proceeds. There was people giving money to Jeffrey Dahmer. They got that. I know they filed a lawsuit against the city of Milwaukee for $10 million, but they end up, I think they only got 800,000 a piece or something like that. People were trying to get a hold of Jeffrey Dahmer's possessions and have an auction and do museums and all crazy stuff. But a group of people got together. They disposed of his items, and they paid to dispose of his items. And I think they took the money and they split it up amongst the families. So the families are like, you're rehashing. We're trying to continue on with life. This just sparked the, uproar. So I know some of them are not happy. So there's mixed reviews. People talking about the Jeffrey Dahmer is gonna be like one of the top costumes for this upcoming Halloween. And it was back then. And they had comic books and all types. They had made him into a monopoly at one point, after he had got arrested and he was in prison. They made a monopoly. They was trying to make money, and he was in pop culture and all types of craziness for what he did, which was totally immoral and totally wrong. So yeah, so my advice, if you want to watch it, if you did the Freddy Krueger and the Michael Myers and Scream and all that, if you been a regular to watch that, you could watch this. If you are, if it would trigger you, I would suggest not to watch it. If if certain things trigger you to a certain point, I wouldn't suggest you watch it. If you know how to discern, like myself, know how to discern, what's entertainment, what's real, what's what, you'll be okay to watch it. But I really thought it was pretty good. They way to put it together. So like it was a series, documentary style, but yet a series, and they brought you into the characters. I think that's what make this different from stuff that was done into the past. They brought you in and allow you to get to know the characters. So that's just my 08 cents, 2 cents, or whatever cents you want to make of it. You do what's best for you, for your spirit and your well-being. As I said, I enjoyed it. Not enjoyed the series. When I say enjoyed it, I'm not saying what happened to the people, the actions, but the way they put it together and structure the series. That's what I mean that I enjoyed. I take no, enjoyment into torturing and harming and hurting people at all, but how they put together the series and the stories that were told and the plot lines that came through that. That's what I enjoyed. So yeah, that is it. That is all. That is my 2 cents. like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to discuss. You know, stay tuned for more videos. Have a blessed evening and may the rest of your week be blessed and prosperous.